Welcome everyone, Year 12 Open House. Thank you so much, people in person. You trekked through the slush, I'm seeing nods, yes. You trekked through the slush, the gross weather to join us. Hopefully our beverages and empanadas make up for it. And then folks online, there are many of you trickling in. Let's warm up the chat. Maybe you can drop your name, where you're zooming in from, and maybe drop in your zodiac sign. We'll do that later. Okay, so I'm Salome Asega. I am the director of New Inc., and I'll kick us off with our open house presentation. So first we'll do a staff introduction, and then we'll move into an overview of both the program and the application itself. We'll pause for a brief Q&A, and then you'll get to hear from a few of our members and one of our mentors and residents who are all joining us. And then we'll end with a fuller Q&A. This is where you'll hear from full staff. You can also ask the members questions. You can ask the mentors questions. And then, of course, we'll end with some informal hangs, so we can do one-on-one conversations then as well. Chiron is our Zoom doula on the chat, so we'll be holding it down for the New Inc. team virtually. Okay, so who makes up the New Inc. team? As I said, I'm the director. We also have Raul, who's the deputy director, waving hand. Paul John is our head of community. Gatch is holding down the station back here as our production coordinator. Chiron is our program manager. Alyssa is on the cam back there. Runs marketing and communications. And then Barbara is our department coordinator, is over here in the corner still welcoming people in. Yes. Okay, cool. So New Inc. was founded in 2014 and is the New Museum's cultural incubator that supports creative practitioners working across art, design, technology, science, architecture, all of the things. I like to say we're a home for the misfits, for the people who don't neatly fit into any one discipline. If you're working on something that doesn't even quite have a name yet, this is your place. You found your people. Like, we really embrace the new and the yet to be named. So New Inc. provides 4 core offerings. We have community programs. We have a really robust mentorship offering. We have professional development curriculum. And all of this magic kind of happens in a shared workspace. This is our temporary office. The team members will get into these bullet points in more depth soon. And then the asterisk here is that we have also in the last 3 years really ramped up our public presentation. I think for a good chunk of New Inc.'s history, we were this secret community of people toiling away in the corners of the New Museum. And we've really kind of switched gears since coming back from the pandemic to make sure that the work of our members is really visible and platformed. So there are opportunities to present publicly, including Demo, our annual festival, and some other opportunities throughout the years. So, okay, some overall statistics. So 11 years into the program, we have over 650 alumni. We support a community of over 120 people each year. We have over 130 mentors who join us to support the cohort. And these last 3 statistics are self-reported as members leave the program. So to date, New Inc. members have helped to create over 600 jobs. They've helped to create or retain over 300 businesses. And New Inc.ers are really good at raising money. They've raised over $28 million to sustain their projects, businesses, and initiatives. So the year 11 statistics here are about the current cohort. So we're supporting 60 track projects, and that amounts to 82 individuals because projects can have more than one person working on them. We also have 65 community members, so these are kind of at-large members. They can be alumni, or they can be people kind of onboarding into the program. And then you'll see here from the demographic statistics that we really strive to look like the city that we're in, which is New York City. So we're a program that is majority BIPOC, a program that's majority women and gender non-conforming folks, LGBTQIA, and then our program is 20% of the members in our program identify as having a disability. So some New Inc. alumni. These were impossible slides to generate because I could just talk your ear off about all 650 people, but for brevity, and we want to like make sure you still love us at the end of this, we've selected 5. And the 5 here kind of represent, I think, some of the different areas of work we support. So this is the Black School. They were members in year 6. The Black School is a schoolhouse for radical design education based in New Orleans. It's founded by 2 artists, Joseph Coulier and Shawnee Peters. When they were at New Inc., they ran a very successful crowdfunding campaign where they raised $300,000 and were able to leverage that and get that matched by foundations. So they've received significant support from folks like the Mellon Foundation. They've bought land, they've started to build the schoolhouse, and we're hoping, I check in with them that on the development, and we're hoping that it will be done by next year. But I was in New Orleans a couple months ago and visited. It's moving quickly. Laura Splan is an individual artist who joined New Inc. and was really thinking about her studio practice as a business and really matured the studio into a business. And has really taken advantage of some of our partnership relationships. So Laura sat on our creative science track, which is supported by the Simons Foundation. Through the Simons Foundation, she cultivated relationships with scientists to help her further her research into epigenetics. And then from there, developed a whole suite of immersive projects that then she sought further support from another one of our partners, EY Metaverse Lab, and she did the inaugural residency program with EY, which helped her premiere the project with a Getty this year as part of their PST programming. Another one of our alumni is Kinfolk Foundation. When they were at New Inc., they were called Movers and Shakers. They came in as a business and learned through the professional development programming that maybe converting to a nonprofit organization made more sense for their mission. So they went through the process of becoming a 501c3. They also did a lot of successful fundraising while they were here. They received a $500,000 Verizon small business grant. They developed relationships with Netflix and ran campaigns with their documentary Amend. And since leaving New Inc., they secured a nearly $2 million grant from Mellon Foundation to take their project nationally. And they're an augmented reality platform that is engaged in a contemporary conversation we're having about monuments and who we decide to celebrate in public space. So they replace existing figures with people we should instead be celebrating. And so through this Mellon support, they've been able to commission artists like Wangechi Mutu and Hank Willis Thomas and Tourmaline to make new digital monuments across the country. Another alumni, Stephanie Dinkins, who was in the 3rd year of our program. At that time in her practice, she was conducting these interviews with a humanoid robot named Bina48, who looks like a Black woman and was developed by a team made up of non-Black women. So Stephanie was very interested in how Bina understood her racial and gender identity and created a very interesting video series based on these conversations. When she was here, she was part of a partnership we ran with Nokia Bell Labs, where we revived their experiments in arts and technology program. So she had a hands-on exposure with some of the developers at Nokia and really propelled her research, furthered her research with AI. And she was also on the Times 100 most influential people in AI list last year. We also have another alumni who's on that list, Sugwen Chung, who is part of the same Nokia Bell Labs residency program. And the last alumni I'll speak to here is Mischief. When Mischief was at New Inc., they were called Hello Velocity, and they're a full kind of 360 creative production studio. They do everything from creative design to like really speculative, far out there projects. The project that they applied to New Inc. with was something called Bite Labs, where it was a speculative company where they would grow meat from celebrity tissue samples so you could eat your favorite celebrities. But of course, they've now gone on to do all kinds of really amazing collaborations, like the big red boots you've seen. They made the Satan sneakers for Little Nas X. But yeah, really a conceptual collective / creative studio that is kind of critiquing hyper-consumerism. So when you apply to New Ink, you apply to sit on one of our 5 tracks, and they each come with special partnerships or relationships, so I'll talk through them quickly here. Art and Code is a track that's supported by the McGovern Foundation, and it's run in partnership with Rhizome, who are one of our anchor members. It's an organization that's in the corner there. They're a 25-year-old arts and technology organization, legacy. On that track, we support creative practitioners who are working with software and hardware as artistic mediums. On Creative Science is where all of our arts and science work sits. It's supported by the Simons Foundation. Extended Realities is a track we run in partnership with Onassis Foundation and their space Onassis Onyx and the EY Metaverse Lab. Barbara will speak to Onassis Onyx in a bit. And then that track is, I think, the track a lot of people know us for. That's where all of our immersive work sits. That's where all our virtual reality, augmented reality, immersive sound work sits. Social Architecture is supported by the Jonathan D. and Mark C. Lewis Foundation and is a track that supports creative people who are thinking about social and public space. So that's where a lot of our architecture, urban planning, social practice, community organizing work sits. And then lastly, Cooperative Studies is a track that supports artists, community organizers, business owners, people who are thinking about new experimental models for collective decision-making, fundraising, and more. So I think from there, I will pass it to Paul.
Thank you very much, Salome. As I was just introduced, I'm the head of community here. This is Gatch. And my job covers all things people. So the open call, the mentors, and I work with the whole team in discussing who we are inviting to be here, and what are those people working towards. New Ink is a place for people to launch ambitious projects, no matter where they are in their career. There are a lot of offerings in our program, which we'll cover in this presentation, but I think it's a unanimous sentiment across the team that the most valuable part of New Ink are the friends you make along the way. I'll pause here and just go through our community philosophy. Community being friendships, conflicts, and the progress we make together. We imagine that the cohort we invite next year will be the contemporaries shifting the plateaus of culture in 5 to 10 years. Salome mentioned earlier that people here don't really fit into a single box. And I agree. I think New Ink is a place for radicals, outliers, misfits, who represent the necessary genius needed today. Those people don't need or necessarily angle in normal contemporary ways. So our community philosophy is really to incubate and center QT BIPOC voices and advance cultural change through their work. And we believe that equitable change includes centering those people. But some of our community offerings are social events, and I'm going to pass it to my colleague Gatch to describe a couple of those, and I'll be right back to talk about our member benefits.
Hi everybody, Gatch here, the production coordinator, handling a bunch of that stuff at the back. If you see in the camera, Alyssa's also there with me. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the community offerings that we have. So the first thing I'd like to talk about are the work shares. Now, work shares are monthly New Ink community gatherings focused around members sharing their work with a cohort, and sometimes even mentors and special guests to receive feedback, exchange knowledge, and to cross-pollinate ideas and ask for help. They're typically internal events, but every so often we open them up to the public, an example of which is a recent one we held at Center for Performance Research, photographed here. And these are fun avenues for people to meet fellow members of the cohort and to make friends. Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about are these group outings that we have, which consist sometimes of museum visits, conferences, etc. something we do every so often these days, quite often, are site visits or field trips to venues that are run by New Ink members or friends in the New Ink network. These are great opportunities to see what's out there in the city, as well as to network, build relationships, and make friends. And so far this year, and in the past years, we've been to such places as Biobat, Powerhouse Arts, Secret Rezo Club, and more. And lastly, the thing that we offer is an avenue for you all, for the members rather, to propose like your ideas. We make space and time for that here at New Ink for like these member ideas, and members are invited to submit proposals for events either for the cohort, a limited invited audience, or even for the public. And we've done all sorts of things from karaoke nights to small panels to, photographed here, a VP watch party hosted by current Y11 member Soft Power Vote. And those are some of our community offerings. And with that, I'd like to pass the mic back to Paul.
Thanks, Gatch. So while community is one of our major tenets, we do have a lot of offerings. And I'll start with the dues. New Ink is not like a residency program. We don't make art. It's an incubator. So if you have to think about it more as like a professional development / accelerator program. The incubator rates are $150 a month or $1,800 for the year. We also have a handful of subsidized rates at $75 a month. I'll also cover in a moment, we have 3 fully funded subsidized tracks this year, first time ever. Thank you to our boss, Salome, for achieving this for us. So what happens if you get into New Ink and get accepted? What are our main offerings? First of all, you'll have dedicated staff attention. So the 7 of us offer office hours every week. You can book time with us to talk about your projects, work through your hurdles or blocks. You'll also be assigned to a specific track, one of the 5 that Salome mentioned. In those track meetings that happen monthly, you'll work with the track mentor to go over a bird's eye view of what's happening in the field and what's happening amongst your colleagues. Each track has 12 members on it. We also have dedicated one-on-one mentors for each project. So 12 projects per track, 5 tracks, 60 projects, 60 dedicated mentors. Okay, so 1 project to mentor. Those mentors are matched with you, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, and you'll work with them throughout the year. We also have office hour mentors, which are experts across the field, which you can have like a quick 40-minute meeting with. These are publicists, technologists, entrepreneurs, curators, or alumni. Next, we also have priority program access with an opportunity to show and demo. Raul will talk a little bit more about our public programs and how you can opt into those. Lastly, next we have a co-working space. While we'll be leaving this temporary office and moving back to the Bowery next to the new museum sometime this fall, during the year of the Y12 cohort, we will have access to a new building, a new floor with a media lab and a fabrication studio. That will get covered later as well. We also host 2 special weeks where we invite about 10 to 12 curators from across the fields to have one-on-one visits with our members. We also started a new investor mentoring program this year that we're piloting, and we'll see if we carry it over, but we probably will. And lastly, definitely not least, is your new museum membership. This offers you reciprocal membership at other museums, but also you'll get first invite to the new museum openings, to the previews, etc. I'm going to introduce my colleague, Alyssa, our marketing and communications associate, to talk a bit more about our other benefits.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa. I'm going to go to this mic. Here. Okay, so a few of the media benefits of being an incubator member at New Ink are that you get featured on the New Museum website. You have your own member profile with a bio, a headshot, and if you choose an external link out, you'll be included in the New Museum press release, and you'll have access to the New Ink Slack community with over 1,200 alumni, members, and mentors. And this Slack channel is like pretty active. People are always posting events, offerings, and there's a natural call and response that happens when folks are looking for support. And then each track has their own Slack channel as well to communicate with other members and their track mentor. You'll also have access to the member portal on the New Museum website. This has professional development recordings, membership guides, and more resources. And then you also receive a member-only newsletter each week called New Ink Next Week. And this is where we post important dates, events, any updates happening. And then there's always space for the members to also share their upcoming offerings. And that's a few of our media benefits.
Okay, this is my long bit, so bear with me. I know Alyssa's mentioned Slack, and some people might have PTSD from Slack, but we make it really fun, and we try to make it as informative as possible. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 completely subsidized tracks, so everybody sitting on these 3 tracks will be paying the subsidized rate. Art and Code this year is subsidized by the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. Creative Science is subsidized by the Simons Foundation, and Social Architecture by the Lewis Foundation, okay? So there's only 2 tracks that are not fully subsidized, the Cooperative Studies and the Cooperative Studies and the Extended Realities tracks, but that might change, you never know. We also have a new award this year for the first time. There will be 1 member of the Korean diaspora that will have a free membership to the program this year. So on our application website, you can select these options, and if you are selected, you will receive a free membership for the year. So I'm going to describe our 3 tiers of mentorship right now. And mentorship definitely is a large part of the program, and it is, definitely one of the most valuable from our members. Our mentors are a network of over 130 different people working across many different fields. They are guides, advisors, colleagues, and sometimes collaborators. The 3 categories we've divided them into are mentors and residents. These are guides that lead each track in their monthly meeting and offer a bird's eye view of what's happening in their field and correlate it with the work of the members in each track. They meet monthly and they set their own cadence. So I'll just read through the mentors we've had. Daniel McFadder, who works at EY Metaverse, has been our mentor in residence for 4 years now at the Extended XR track. Maura Coffey-Peterson, who led the Universal Basic Income program at Creatives Build New York, leads our Cooperative Studies program. Isabel Flower, who's returning as a second-time mentor, is an editor at Dean Magazine and a writer. She's leading our Social Architecture track. Aileen Isagon-Skyer, who's a creative technologist, curator, writer, Web3 expert, has come back for the 2nd year to lead our Art and Code track. And Dr. Elizabeth Hanoff, who is here today, will be speaking later and was part of Demo in 2023, I believe, is leading our Creative Science track. In addition to our mentors and residents, we also have community mentors and residents that cover all 130 members that we have. As mentioned earlier, we have community members that are oftentimes alumni, but sometimes are projects that maybe aren't ready for the incubator program that want to onboard into the program. So A+A+A, Andrea, Ashley, and Ariana are actually alumni, and they've been running our one of our social events that we started last year called the Lunar New Year Party, hosting a Mahjong tournament that just happened in January 31st. Dr. Talia Mota, who is a researcher who has a PhD in virology focusing on HIV and AIDS treatment, is offering office hours and also hosting a science fair later in March for our members. And Sloan Leo Cowan, he is the founder of Phlox, a community design and strategy studio, who has come in for our orientation week and helped our members kind of design what community looks like, and also leads us in our town hall moment at the end of the year, a reflection moment. As I mentioned earlier, each incubator member gets paired with a dedicated mentor project, I should say. This is like based on a je ne sais quoi of multiple ranking sessions, speed dating, and ultimately kind of a gut feeling of like, who can help you? Maybe they don't have the necessary expertise, but who has the vibe to ride or die with you? And ultimately, the cadence and scope of those meetings are decided by the mentor and incubator member. We provide like a scope, a memorandum of understanding for you to work through, but you guys work through that process together. Here are 3 of our mentors this year. Caroline Cici Concepcion, who is a co-founder of Art Noir, a nonprofit organization that seeks to empower and cultivate BIPOC artists, curators, and thinkers. Sarah Elise, who runs Apogee Collective, a hospitality collective centering BIPOC people and also people with neurodivergent stressors. She also runs Awoke Again Vintage, a community-centered shop, cafe, and event space. And Wayne Suter Matamoros has come back in many different ways, but he is a strategic design leader who has worked at accelerators, worked with venture capitalist funds to work with startups. Definitely not least, but last, are our office hour mentors. These are 60 to 70 experts, alumni, curators, investors, technologists, and more. These are some of the mentors we've had in the past. They change from year to year, but oftentimes they return. Noam Segal, a curator at the Guggenheim. Shama Rahman, who runs public strategy and like kind of PR at New York Magazine. Nonsi Kelela Mutiti, who is an alumni of the program, who is currently the chair and dean of graphic design at Yale. And Neil Ramsey, who's a creative economist. Neil also works in our professional development, of which Chiron will come up and discuss right now.
Hey, y'all. Like Paul said, my name is Chiron. I run a professional development program. And something that I like to say is that we run our program in iterations. What I mean by that is that some things stay the same every year, while others we learn to keep flexible. Essentially, we program around the questions, the needs, and the challenges that you bring with you as members of the cohort. That said, there are a handful of needs that we've learned to sort of predict and proactively program into the year as consistent themes. One of those is something I like to call business alchemy, but you see business development here. Programs in this category cover topics like aligning on vision, managing finances, legal structure, pricing your offerings, all of the sort of business spells that you might like to cast to make your practice not just feasible, but sustainable. Here's a video of one of our facilitators, AX, describing a workshop that she ran in the bucket for us last year.
My name is AX Mina. I'm a leadership coach and creative consultant. So this year we did a fall intensive session on time and energy management. It's really essential in creative practice. And typically, most coaches will focus on just time management. How do you manage your time? How do you manage your projects? But I think especially for creative entrepreneurs, for multi-hyphenates, it's just as important to think about your energy. There's social energy, there's some meetings that you might be having. There's creative energy, there's strategy energy, and our favorite is administrative and logistical energy. Maybe making plans, doing your bookkeeping. They are all different ways that occupy our mind and our spirit. And it's really important to really think about the energy that we're expending throughout the week and also the way that we're replenishing our energy. That's really supportive of the creative practice without draining ourselves too much in the projects that we're trying to bring to life. It's an essential ingredient to how we ensure that we're not just preventing burnout, but ensuring we're really building and developing our creative practice with joy and with our full human person.
Period. Another bucket points to programs that address questions that you might have about how to connect to your audience authentically or how to represent your work in various contexts. One of our most frequent professional development collaborators and mentors, Musa Murchison, ran a working group which met across 7 bi-weekly sessions in the fall called the Tell Me About Yourself Forum. And in their sessions, members would engage in storytelling exercises, practice introductions with each other, and really explore sort of their personal and professional narratives. And then we have a final bucket that's kind of flexible and fluid because we discovered that that's sort of a meta need in the community in terms of our learning program. And this category tends to float in the care, play, and experimentation space. Our guest facilitator, Austin Roby, describes a working group that he led for us in this video.
I'm Austin Roby, and I'm a cooperative entrepreneur. I'm a founder of Subvert, which is a cooperatively owned Bandcamp successor and interested in shared ownership and governance of artist infrastructure. This year at New Inc., I am a dedicated mentor and leading a workshop on codifying care within creative businesses. And in the past, I've been a member myself as part of Year 6. Care is the invisible labor that sustains our relationships and our life, and we often find that to be absent in traditional business logics. So something that we've been exploring here is how to take care-based practices and integrate them within our business structures themselves.
Thank you, Austin. Another way to think about these buckets is as potential paths that you might take to curate your own learning experience. So let's say that you applied to the program last year. Congrats, you got in. And in this alternate reality, you'll learn that the year is broken up into 3 seasons. So maybe in the first season, you want to live your best organized life. So you join us for a 7-week working group on road mapping and strategic planning. Maybe during the second season, oh no, you're busier than ever. So you don't join for a full working group, but instead you opt into a handful of one-off sessions, professional development sessions that happen monthly. This month you've decided to spend Valentine's Day doing a workshop on taxes for creatives. Bold choice. And then maybe you zoom out in season 3, which is when we kick off our prep program for demo speakers. You're not doing demo this year, but you decided to join us for a ramp workshop on narrative and deck design because you want to work on your pitch. And just like that, the incubator sort of comes and goes. But at the end of it, you still have access to the member portal, which has many of the recordings and materials from the year of programming to revisit whenever you like. And you'll want to do that because a lot more is covered throughout the year than just the snapshot that we went over. And these are some examples from years past of professional development sessions and working groups that we've had. Most of the offerings that we do are actually hosted virtually or hybrid, but a few of these sessions might happen right here in this space or in our space next year, in one of the conference rooms. So I think now is actually a good time to let Barbara, our department coordinator, talk to you about our space.
Hi, everyone. Oh, wait, Kyra. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Right? Okay, cool. Ooh, we're going back. Now we're forward. Hi, my name is Barbara. I am the department coordinator here at New Inc. A large portion of my job is taking care of the space. I'm sure that you see me running around with my head cut off, like a chicken with its head cut off. And I'm here to talk about it. So previously, New Inc. was actually housed in this smaller building right next to the new museum on Bowery. We were on the 2nd floor. We were kind of we were a little bit separate from the new museum, but I do have some interesting news coming up for this upcoming year, for year 12. New Inc. will move from this temporary housing space. Even though we love this office, we do want to go back to the museum, and we'll be entering a new building. So we'll be housed on the 5th floor, right where the blue block is. The whole thing is gonna belong to New Inc., so we're gonna have a lot of fun there. Another cute little tidbit is that we're gonna have a private balcony. If you look up in that little green area, kind of mint green, is gonna be all ours. You can have all the fun and do all the things. We're not gonna stop you. Okay, some things that are going to be available in this new museum expansion is obviously we're going to have our co-working space similar to kind of how we have set up here. There's gonna be private phone booths for beautiful talking meetings. If you need a one-on-one time with yourself, you have that. We're going to have conference rooms. We're going to have really comfy couches that are premium quality. Nothing that you have to build yourself from like IKEA. We're going to have storage lockers, media lab, and we're also going to have media production equipment to rent out. And then we're also going to have a fabrication lab. There's more to come on that. I don't want to reveal too much, but if you want to do something, you probably can do it in a fabrication lab. Lastly, we'll have light refreshments. We really love seltzer. It's a great, spicy water is everyone's cup of tea. So that will be all available in this upcoming museum expansion. Additionally, we will have continue to have our partnership in the space on NASA's Onyx. This is the home of the Extended Realities track. It is a state-of-art motion. It's a state-of-art motion studio. And although Extended Reality is hosted here, if you are interested in getting your hands in and maybe moving around in front of a green screen, just come and talk to us. There's flexibility. Meet with us one-on-one. Maybe during our office hours we have available. One of the main things I want to point out is that we want this space to make it feel like it's yours. And I'm sure previously we talked a lot about the programming and all the things that are available here. And I think through the programming, everything, the community will keep expanding, especially with the new building. So I'm going to pass it over to one of the big bosses, Raul. You can come up to talk about public programs.
I'm really not. Maybe I'll just do this. Okay, so my name is Raul Zbengech. I'm the deputy director here. One of my primary roles as deputy director is our public programming. As you heard Salome mention earlier, we've really consolidated a lot of what we do publicly around our festival called Demo. It's a festival that grew from Demo Day, which used to be a small one-night program where only 12 New Inc. members used to present in front of an audience of investors, creative directors, curators, people who could advance their careers to the next stage. We've expanded that a little bit over the past few years. We now have, I think, 25 New Inc. members presenting on stage, about 40 projects from New Inc. presented in exhibitions and showcases. And we started inviting other industry leaders, speakers, performers, people who can kind of expand the storytelling that happens at New Inc. by showing what's coming up in the next few years, kind of like connecting the dots between people at certain stages in their careers. The festival is still intended for an audience of people who can help advance your careers. We do a pretty large amount of effort to get those people into the seats, to see your presentations, to see your exhibition work. But this year we've expanded it, since the beginning of the festival, we've expanded it to be open to the general public. The entire festival, the majority of the festival is free because a lot of the work that happens here, like Salome was mentioning, used to be kind of secretive. Nobody really knew what was happening. Nobody kind of understood this pretty important work that's being done in art, design, and technology. A lot of the policies and business models of the future are happening behind these closed doors. And we always feel like culture is always the one that moves fastest. It leads to policy, it leads to technological developments, but it is something that we feel should happen in public. In addition to Demo, we have a few other programs, some spontaneous, some evergreen. The Creative Science Dinner, for example, has become a yearly program for us. It's a dinner that centers our creative science track, where we show projects from the creative science track. We invite a guest chef to respond to the themes of each dinner. This year it was Char Un from Krum, Cambodia, cooking at Noosphere Arts. In previous years, we've had this dinner at Oko Farms and at Ace Hotel Brooklyn. This will return in year 12 that you're applying for. It's kind of like a homecoming for everybody. And then we have a lot of spontaneous public programming that changes year to year. We really like to experiment and try things. We like to plant seeds, and we like to have fun. For example, last year we held a office holiday party themed holiday party where Julio Torres and Ana Fabrega launched a fake new startups that's about storytelling around the figures in architectural renderings. It's a thing. Don Christian Jones created the sexy linguini step, which was an actual dance you could learn before. I did. This one's probably coming back, I think. We've also thrown punk shows on Times Square. That was in the beginning of year 10. We kicked off with a punk show on Times Square. That was free. That's Less Sick Puppy headlining. In the past, we've done really kind of everything you can imagine in public programming. We've helped launch the Somewhere Good app with what they call the Spiral at ACE New York. We've had an exhibition at New Lab with our creative science track. We do a lot of talks and programming at Onassis Onyx, and we even did a Next Web Summit at the New Museum where we presented new developments in Web3 projects, if you can remember that. That was in like 2022. So the major upcoming public program that I invite all of you to come to, I think you should, is Demo. It's coming back in June. The opening program is June 4th through 6th, but the entire festival runs June 4th through the 22nd. You'll hear a lot more about that in about a month when you announce it. But I think you might be the first people in a public setting to hear that it's coming back and when it is, so keep it to yourselves. I'm kidding, you can tell your friends. All right, Paul, you want to tell us how to submit your optimal application?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to hear how to submit your optimal application? They want it.
All right, maybe you all are like that Eric Andre meme. Let me in. A lot of exciting things coming up, but yes, how do you get into this program? A little bit of background, just so you all know. A lot of this is listed on our site as well. But in last year, or this present year, 30.8% of applicants advanced to the interview phase, and 54.5% of interviewees were accepted into the program. So slightly better odds than other applications. Prior to the interviews, each application is reviewed by 3 different people, and the New Link team deliberates based on those scores to see which projects advance to interviews. It's not always the highest scoring ones. What are the criteria we judge you on, or we rate you on, score you on rather? Let me describe these 4 criteria. This is actually what our reviewers score you on. So this text right here. Clear commitment to growth. Is this a project that is growth-minded or wants to adapt and change? Can this project scale? So are you beginning a project and want to grow it? Do you have 500,000 listeners to your podcast and you want to make it profitable? There are many ways to think about this. It doesn't have to be like you're already there. It can be a new project. Strong practice working across disciplines of art, tech, design, and architecture. Do you collaborate with other artists? Are you curious about fields you're not an expert in? Are you delving into uncharted territories for yourself that maybe we can find other people to connect you with? Advancement of culture, driving social, economic, and ecological change. Is this project you're proposing challenging the status quo? Are you looking to create new worlds and opportunities for people that maybe don't have them or things that don't exist? Community-minded. Your project doesn't have to involve a large community, but it has to work well next to others. Can this project or its members work through conflict, manage the brutal aspects of capitalism, or find new avenues to work with all different types of people? First and foremost, I would suggest spending a little bit of time reading our open call page. It's really long, but we put a lot of information there for a reason. Okay. We also require you to submit a deck. We don't ask for a lot of words or writing, but on our submittable page, you'll find a link to a sample deck we provide that has questions we want you to answer. So please take a look at that. Pay close attention to our submittable application as it is dynamic. Things change based on what you answer, and we want all of the demographic information for each team member. We accept teams up to 4. And you'll be able to express your interest in your top track choices, or maybe you're like, I don't know which track to sit on. Don't worry about it. Just apply with your project. Ultimately, through the deliberation process, which spans about almost 40 hours, we will identify through lines, emergent themes, what's happening with this cohort that is applying to us, and we will identify which place each project should go. Lastly, we just uploaded 2 application walkthroughs by current Y11 members. They're on YouTube right now by an XR member, Srushti Kamat, and a social architecture project, Hunde, who's returning for a second year. You can see their application. They're talking through their project and how they applied and what the experience was like. We're also going to hear from some members right now as well. This event is recorded and will be on YouTube as well. You can watch last year's open house as well on YouTube, so you can see what's changed, what stayed the same as well. And I think the best advice I can say is don't go it alone. If there's anything that New Ink tries to teach other people, there are 100+ people online right now. There's over 50 people in the space. Introduce yourselves to each other. Work on this application together. When you talk to somebody, when you work on this project with other people, new ideas and insights will come up. So New Ink can begin without you being in the program right now. The last thing I want to note is our timeline. So our applications are open until March 3rd. On the submittable app, you have 1 shot to submit. Once you submit, it's over. But you are allowed to keep a draft and edit it up until that point, okay? So feel free to edit, share, collaborate with your collaborators, and make sure that your deck and everything feels right. On April 8th, you'll receive an interview request if you're advancing to that round. Otherwise, we'll send a note explaining that you're not. And then from the 15th to April to the 30th will be when we conduct these 110 interviews. New applicants have a 25-minute interview with us. After that moment, we'll take some time to digest all of what we've heard. We will identify these emergent themes, and then we'll send out final decisions after demo, so you can come to demo with a light back. At this moment, we'd like to open it up for a brief Q&A about the application process and the program before we hear from our members and what their experience is like. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to announce them online. You can write them out, and we'll read them. I'll say them aloud here. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for this presentation.
Of course.
Great program. Can you tell us more about creative science? So it's a little bit like an oxymoron, because science is something like really precise, and you...
I'm looking at Salome. The question is to describe a little bit more about creative science. The creative science track are often biologists, scientists that are working with emergent or weird technologies. So right now, sitting on our track are EcoRove, who are also going to present later, but Dr. Elizabeth Knopf maybe has some insight on what they've heard during their track meetings.
Glad to answer that question a little bit now, and I think also you might get some clarification from the members who are going to speak in a second. The creative science track are folks who are working at the intersection of scientific knowledge making. There we go. Maybe I'll do this.
Yeah.
All right. The creative science track are folks who are working at the intersection between scientific methods of knowledge production and also creative practices. So maybe they're using scientific methods or using understandings that have been developed in the sciences and then applying those to their creative practice. Maybe they're using creative methods to then investigate questions that are relevant to the sciences. We have this particular cohort has a lot of intersection with the biological sciences, for example, this year, but that is different from year to year. And so I kind of consider, I guess, my role as the mentor in the creative sciences to be a convener. So we meet once a month. I come from a background in the sciences, and so I'm able also to kind of provide my perspective as a scientist to inform everybody's work.
Thank you. And I think the most important thing to note there is that every year is different. So this year there's like a specific focus on like neuroscience, but every year is definitely different. Go ahead. The question is, if you don't live in New York City, are you able to participate in the program? And the answer is yes. Almost all of our programs are hybrid. The only things that are not hybrid are our public presentations. They're physically grounded in a specific location, and our community events. So there is a part of the program that is physically here. For the international cohort interested in participating, all of our programs are held on Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So everything we program is here. So if you're in Korea, Shanghai, Australia, Singapore, it might be challenging. Bangalore, India. We found our best success between Europe and California. But it's not to say we have a current member in Shanghai right now. They're having a great time. And we've had members in Korea as well.
I'm wondering if this program is more suited towards kind of, or just the, I guess the balance of it is like if you're exploring sort of creative practice and looking for kind of ways to flesh out ideas, or is it kind of more for someone who's a little bit more like further along in kind of coming up with an idea and like especially oriented towards someone who's looking for kind of more like entrepreneur or like enterprising kind of aspects of that creative process?
So the question was, is this program more for somebody who's curious and maybe exploring options, or somebody who's like looking for an entrepreneurial or goals-based practice? I would say the New Ink program is you get what you give. So if you're giving curiosity, you get curiosity. If you're giving business, entrepreneurialness, stabilization, functionality, longevity, you will get that as well. So the program isn't set for any particular category, but it is a self-motivated and driven program. We will do our best to guide you, but we will not hold your hand.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Just to that question, I think something that makes New Ink pretty special is that we bring people from varying stages of their careers into one program, right? So you're getting a mix of people who are just at the very beginning of an idea or a business with people who are seasoned professionals who've come back to be embedded in a vulnerable community of learners. And something like really magical and catalytic happens when these people are bringing both of their professional and lived experiences into a program, right? You inform each other. So I would say if you have the beginning of an idea or an idea you've been working on for like 10 plus years, apply. Like, let us figure out how people sit next to each other in the program.
For sure. And you see like people like Austin Roby, who was a member, who came back as a mentor, who starts all these multiple projects. I think that's great. Let's take one more question and then we can move to our members.
My question is more so related to like supporting materials to like the deck. I think I saw in the application page there was a mention about like videos you wanted to share, like images. Do you recommend sharing things that are specifically related to whatever project you are hoping to work on in the program, or is it more for like historical context?
So the question was about supportive materials in the application deck, if it should be relevant to the project you're applying for, or if it can be historical or archival. I think in general, as long as it relates to the work that you've done and where you're going, we're curious. We're interested to learn more about what you've done, projects that maybe aren't so aligned with what you're hoping to do, but we do ask for clarity as to what you're trying to do here at New Ink. So I think the answer maybe isn't as satisfying as you'd like, but if the work that you're submitting is relevant to like show that you're committed, that you're able to execute, that you're curious, then submit it. Any questions online, Chiron?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Do you want to come over and read them?
So a couple of people asked about the different tracks. Teresa asked, could you clarify the extended reality track and the art and code track? Do they overlap at all? And then someone else asked about cooperative studies. So I'm wondering if we can just double tap on all of the tracks besides creative science.
I'll try my best. So the extended realities track, maybe maybe you'll be most familiar of like the MetaVision glasses or augmented reality through your phone. These are performers, artists, theatrical, motion capture, that kind of genre of like what is beyond the body. Art and code traditionally has been like artists. This year it was like a lot of musicians and people who are using web-based browsing. But if you use code or art, or you work with artists that use code and art in your practice, like you're a curator and you only curate technology-based art, you might be aligned with the art and code track. Cooperative studies is a newer track. This is the second year we're running that track. And these are people that are thinking about different ways of business, like can artists own a company together? What is like a new version to subvert capitalism where it's about investors and profits? A lot of our members in Cooperative Studies track this year are publishers, Secret Rezo Club, Gender Fail. We also have like a music producer in the KDC Guild. So each year it varies. And I think the takeaway from the tracks in general is that we're not looking for applicants to fit into a track. We're looking to find what is the emergent theme of the applicants this year and which 12 projects can be these people that we speak of in 5-10 years, will be the avant-garde, will be the leaders of their fields. I think, as Salome mentioned, one of our alumni kinfolk who ran this augmented reality application on their phone, changing monuments, like looking at a monument and seeing somebody else instead of like, Ulysses Grant or something. So like, things change quickly in this field, but we're looking for the people that are setting the precedent for the future.
And then for this next question, I think maybe Paul, you and I can tag team. But someone asked, at the beginning you said a member used this program to start thinking of their studio practice as a business. Can you expand more on opportunities to do that, or how the program equips you with that knowledge? I would say that both professional development and mentorship help a lot with doing that. I think a lot of the programs that we put on are geared at helping you make your practice sustainable, whatever that means to you or your collaborators. We invite facilitators from the extended community, facilitators who used to be members and had to sort of go through the experience of having this emerging sort of, what do you call it, practice into, and trying to turn it into an actual business or a viable sort of product or idea. And they give a lot of their knowledge back in the forms of working groups or workshops or lectures. But I think a lot of that happens through experimentation, through conversations that you can have with your dedicated mentor, your office hours mentor. Maybe you can take over.
Yeah, you might have seen that Austin Roby is leading a professional development program in CARE, but is also a dedicated mentor. So most of the mentors in professional development instructors that we invite are people who have gone through exactly what you just asked. Like, how do I take my studio practice and turn it into a cash revenue industry or business? And when we talk about growth and we talk about working in community, those are the things that we're thinking about. Like, are you coachable? Can you take feedback? Are you open to changing something in your studio and experimenting with something new? I think a great example is Craftwork from last year. They were like a fiber and technology studio that really had no financial literacy, in their words. And they worked with their dedicated mentor, James Rohrbach, and created a whole business plan, like 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, what happens when things change. So yeah, it's like, are you open to it? Are you willing to like put the rubber to the road, so to speak, and like go through those messy things? I think we're going to hold off on one last question. I do want our members to give their presentation, and then at the end We'll have a Q&A with them, and we will open it up to like a little mixer here where we can like have one-on-one conversations. Cool? Okay. Without further ado, let me introduce Naomi Lilly from our Art and Code track. Give it up.
Hi, y'all. So my name's Naomi Lilly. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'll just dive in. Oh, wrong way. Got you. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few different things. The first is my time at New Ink, what my progress has looked like, and the now of it all. I have a bombshell to drop, but we'll get there soon. So first and foremost, time at New Ink. I am a part of the Art and Code track. I entered with my business called Bridge. We are a mentorship app that's catered towards creatives looking for mentors in the media industry. Started Bridge in 2019, so this year makes 6 years. I started it when I was 21. I had just done a bunch of internships across entertainment. I was like, okay, I keep walking into rooms where like the people making decisions don't look like me and don't look like people who come from marginalized backgrounds, and I wanted to change that. So went through so many different iterations, so many different accelerators. If you have questions about any of those, please let me know. But a few examples is Pharrell's Black Ambition, the Target Incubator, Techstars, and like a few other like smaller ones, but I'm more than happy to talk about any of those experiences. Ultimately though, with each of them, they just didn't really feel like they were suited for the work that we were doing in regards to our focus on artists and creatives. So when it came to New Ink, had been looking at them for a while. I moved to New York in 2021 and found out about New Ink in 2022 and was like, yeah, this seems like a really cool program, but didn't really take it seriously until last year when I actually came to this open house. And for me, based off of the folks that came to speak, based off of the wonderful team, it just felt like this was a space we always needed to be in, particularly because we have a tech product, but the core of our mission, the core of the work that we did was always focused on the creative itself. In regards to progress, so one of the biggest difficulties in transitioning from a manual mentorship program was to a tech product. We actually got into Techstars without an actual product, and that's what we built in our time there. A year later is when we entered New Ink, and we're like, okay, now we want to get back to the heart of the work that we were doing. And one qualm we always had was finding a great developer to do the work. In my cohort, pretty much everyone codes or was learning how to code, and it was through them that I was like, okay, like maybe I could make this myself. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up coding our next iteration for a span of 3 months. Worked alongside folks within my cohort, worked alongside folks that had seen the different iterations of the app before that to really just understand, okay, I don't need a developer to get us to the first iteration of where we want to be before we expand. I also have an amazing mentor. She was mentioned earlier, but Cece is the head of Art Noir. I don't know if you've heard of Ghetto Gastro, but she's also on the board for that. And she's been fabulous. She has been a mentor that looks like me, which is great, and that's what I wanted. But she's also been a mentor that cares about me first before she cares about the product. And for me, that was really important as far as where I'm at in my career. And then progress. It is a video, but I don't think it's going to play. But it's just like a walkthrough of what the sign-in process of the app looks like. So where I'm at, this is the bombshell. The bombshell's entered the villa. The first picture is actually my friend Cece, but I feel like it just really epitomizes how I feel at this moment in my life. I actually decided to shut Bridge down. I made that decision about 2 weeks ago. It was something that had been on my heart for a little over a year. And with the team I had, it's a team of 4 different women of color. They've been with me from the beginning. So like maybe that speaks towards my leadership abilities. But I felt like the last 2 years was us trying to find the passion again of why we got started. And like I said, started this when I was 21. I was so excited, dove in headfirst, was doing it full time myself by the time I was 23, and just also had a really bad breakup with my co-founder. And it took us 2 years before we would get back to good terms. And like now we're closer than ever. But that grieving process and the different iterations we had to go through and the amount of accelerators we went through where people told us, like, your project isn't good enough, investors aren't going to invest in you, XYZ, you name it, it really starts to wear you down. And I think that my grieving period was really slow and long, and I just got to a point where I'm like, I'm in a new chapter of my life, and New Ink helped me realize that. New Ink helped me realize that the chapter that I'm in now is me as an artist, me as an entrepreneur, and me holding the mission that I started with in myself and carrying it out in the new work that I'm doing. So what does that look like? So I don't know if people have heard of AdColor before, but it is a conference for folks that are in media and advertising, and they have a cohort called Futures, which essentially is folks that are like early to mid in their journeys of being in the media world. So I was a Future this year, and I went to LA in November, and while I was there, I was leaving a mixer and I saw this like huge glass building. I don't know how many folks are familiar with Boiler Room, but the Boiler Room logo was outside, and I was like, okay, like what artist is performing? And so I looked through the window and I saw somebody was on stage doing a talk, and I was like, who is that? And they turned around, and it's one of my favorite rappers, Smino. And Smino's girlfriend is named Danya Taylor. She's super big in the marketing world. If you're familiar with the skincare brand Topical, she also runs all of their partnerships. But I've long looked up to her and was like, okay, let me see if I can find Danya. So we find Danya. I'm like waving through the window. Security issues us away. And I was like, I'm just gonna DM her and see what happens. So I DM'd her. I was like, hey, Danya, like that was us outside. And the next day she responded and was like, thank you so much for the love. It was so wonderful to see you all. And for me, I'm very much always a shoot your shot type of person. So that's what I did. I was like, really admired your work, would love to get the chance to learn from you if you would be willing to be my mentor. She said, yeah, and told me to send her an email. And we've been working with each other now since December. And in the span of 7 days, I directed my first shoot as an art director. I never called myself an art director before this program. But this program and all the chapters I have been through personally in this past year have really showed me like, you are that, and it's time for you to claim that. So the final product of that will come out tomorrow. It was absolutely beautiful. That's a shot of Danye and Smino. But I'm really excited for folks to see it. It's all about how creatives show their own love languages. Examples is like, I made you a playlist, or I saved the last bite for you. Essentially, like, how do we think of love outside of the traditional love languages? And from there, a lot of different opportunities have come. Did some work with Juice House, which is a ad agency, and more recently just got plugged by a record label to start doing artist management part-time. And I do all of that in tandem with my full-time job as a director of marketing at a nonprofit. So a lot of different things, but it just goes to show that the line of entrepreneurship has continued to follow me, and I have been so gracious for the space that has been cultivated at New Ink to really help me realize, like, you are an artist, you don't just help other artists, and like you need to claim that and start saying that openly. But the next project I want to do, like, eventually, is to make some type of website or resource for founders that have closed out their projects, or entrepreneurs that just want to learn about what that process looks like, and creating some type of bank of knowledge in that way. But that's me. I will stop talking now and direct it to the next group.
So next up, our EcoRove from our creative science track, followed by a conversation with Elizabeth Hanoff.
Hey everyone, we're EcoRove. My name is M. Joseph.
My name is Iyad Abou Gaida.
I just want to start to say that today is Iyad's birthday. Happy birthday, Iyad.
Thank you.
We love you.
Thank you. I'm finally 32, so.
Finally. I've been waiting.
I know. We co-run a research and production collective called EcoRove. We met back in 2020, 2 days before COVID lockdown. I'm giving my N95 mask.
Your first N95 mask.
Yes, and the one that saved my life. But we met with our third core collaborator, Jumana Abbas, and we met while we were working, the three of us, on the socio-political and ecological implications of the Lebanese cedar tree.
Yeah, and since then we've grown into a research hub, production company focusing on humans and non-humans in critical zones. And our mission is to empower individuals and organizations to share knowledge, data, and narratives that recontextualize the eco-socio-political dynamics. We do this through documentary work, so filmmaking, photography, animated drawings, combined with scientific research and inquiry.
Our project focuses on like retelling and recontextualizing conventional and hegemonic narratives that dominate humans and non-humans in the critical zones. And so far, due of our like background and like heritage, we've been focusing on projects in the Levant, which is the Eastern Mediterranean region. But we are excited to expand and work with folks who are working on similar and parallel topics as we are doing.
Okay. I feel like we both knew about New Ink for a while. I've known a couple of people who've gone through the program, and I always felt like I wasn't ready, actually, and Iyad actually pushed us to apply, and I'm really happy he did. And we decided to apply to New Ink with a couple of goals. So the first one was to turn EcoRove into an NGO, to widen our network, and also to work on kind of rethinking the ethics of documentary practice and how that could become, or how production studio could be something more collaborative, actually co-collaborative, and how to like decolonize this trajectory of like taking stories, putting them into a documentary, and then not really having any kind of responsibility to the places where those stories come from.
So the Y11 application cycle came like right at the right time. We were very confident after our inaugural show at the new museum, which was called Cedar Exodus. And we felt it's just the right moment kind of to build on that trajectory and see how we can kind of come to New Ink and develop the structure of EcoRove, how we operate, especially also that we collaborate with people across different continents.
Yeah.
So we wanted to see how can we kind of organize EcoRove, how can we expand it, and how can we also turn it into an NGO.
Yeah. And on the screen, these are some examples from our project Cedar Exodus, which has many components but was shown at the New Museum as a short film and a series of animated drawings. We've had a really good time at New Ink so far. We had an amazing opportunity to create a series of eco-dispersal devices, which are showing on the screen, which are biodegradable sculptures that contain local seeds and other organic materials that will protect them as they make their way into landscapes. We think of them as real wilding devices, and we've made a couple of different iterations. And that was a really great opportunity to collaborate with the New Ink team on that. And we also just participated in a conference called Worlding at MIT that was facilitated through people that we've met through this program. The program is very, very, very busy. There are almost too many opportunities to take advantage of, people to meet. And I think it's really, I think it's something we wanted to talk about because we've been very, very go, 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 and it's very much benefited us in this program. We came in with very clear goals, but it's really important to know that when you're applying to this program that you're ready for that kind of intensity, because you can go through this program and miss out on a lot and pay the fees and do everything and not really leverage what's available to you if you don't have the time and the mindset to get into that.
And for that, like we've benefited greatly from mentorship via like Marissa Prefer, who is our like
dedicated mentor.
Yeah, dedicated mentor, and Elizabeth Hanef, who's the cohort mentor. And they've both helped us a lot with kind of like structuring, also like helping us how to turn EcoRove into an NGO and rethinking of that, but also like the way we do agreements with collaborators and how we do it in a way that is not extractive. They've been amazing with that, and they gave us a lot of feedback on that and like mentored us through it.
Elizabeth, who's here, was like amazingly instrumental in helping me organize my time, because I thought I was ready and I got into this program and I was completely overwhelmed, and that was a tremendous help. And also your guidance and Marissa's guidance on applications has helped us solicit new funding for our upcoming documentary, which we just found out about a couple days ago, which we can't announce publicly, but we're really, really, really excited. So yeah, we've really benefited from working with many people, and there's many people we still haven't met with yet that we would like to. I'll just speak a little bit about the application. I think we found the application really easy and straightforward. Professional development is a really big part of this program. So applying with a concise vision of what it is that you want to do, and a real confidence in your vision is really important. The interview process is both informal, but also very exacting. They're looking for concision, focus, really like people who have a vision. And something I really love about this program is, and this was spoken to a little bit earlier, but you can come into it at any entry point. If you have an idea of what you want to do, there are people here who will help you with that. And it's very rare to come across another program that will take you from A to B in that way. So being very clear about what it is you want to do, even if you don't know how to get there, is very instrumental.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like exchange of knowledge that I also appreciated. Like there's some things that we thought, oh, we'll do in 5 years, but it's kind of interesting to see it now, get exposed to it and see like, oh, what we can be in 5 years or 10 years. So in the spirit of that, we talked with a lot of members while we were applying, and we kind of encourage everyone here who's interested actually to talk with as much members as they can. We are here today for the mixer to talk later. You can also reach out to us via email or anything. We're more than happy to kind of pass on our experience in more detail.
Yeah, and just for EcoRove, we're always looking to collaborate with folks. If you guys have ideas that you think are applicable to our work, we really see it as a platform to promote others, even if we're not like explicitly collaborating on projects. So yeah, please don't be a stranger, and yeah, good luck with your applications.
Thank you. I'm gonna actually hold y'all up here and invite Elizabeth to come up. I know we're running out of time, but we started 5 minutes late, so let's keep this to a tight 15 Q&A. Naomi is also here to answer questions about the art and code track, but maybe we can field 2 questions online and 2 questions in person. Sound good? Elizabeth's in charge now.
Okay. This was our
The seeds are here as well. We have them in the office.
Oh yeah, sure. I want to give some extra props to y'all's project. You talked about decolonizing documentary, but I think you're also doing some really important work decolonizing the archives, and biological archives in particular have been tools of erasure, and y'all are fighting really hard against that. So I just want to add that extra piece of information. I think that I'll expand just a little bit more on the creative science track, and then I think really we can open it up for questions. I have some questions for each of you actually to get that going. As far as the creative science track, we see a lot of people or groups who are intersecting a creative practice and then a scientific practice. And so I would say that y'all are intersecting like documentary and ecosystems, for example, in the archive. We've seen there's also projects intersecting architecture and ecosystems, or synthetic biology and philosophy, or bioart and publication and community building, or kink and neuroscience. So if y'all are considering the track, I think you can, the categories are very broad, and so what we're interested in, or what these folks are all thinking about, is how to bring kind of creative practice intersected with scientific practice. As far as the creative science track goes, we spent a lot of time learning about each other's projects, and there's some kind of themes that emerged out of that. And one of the themes that emerged is that folks who are working at this intersection don't necessarily have publication venues to expose their work. And so you've heard a lot about a lot of the public presentations that are mediated by the New Ink team and opportunities to show your work in public spaces. And there's kind of a gap in being able to publish, like academic publishing of work at the intersection between creative practice and scientific research. And so one thing that we've done as a group here is negotiate an agreement with a peer-reviewed publication to publish a special issue that is going to feature all of the projects from this creative science track. And so as a way of kind of acknowledging and marking and giving weight to the contributions of creative thinkers in the scientific field, that's one thing that we're building out. And so with that, I have one question actually for either of you, for both groups, that I think I would love to hear more about, is that I feel like you both work at really sensitive to different senses of scale. So your work, for example, between community building and personal practice, for example, and y'all's work also working at different scales, from almost the microscopic, like the seeds that you're working with, or global scales. And so that was one question that I would love to hear more about from each of you, actually.
I'll try to make it brief. So yeah, I think when I first started my work, I never considered myself an artist, even though I was always doing design, and I actually have a background in documentary work, but my main goal was always just like, I want to connect people to other opportunities. And so for myself, that was largely based on like cold outreach, but also reaching out to folks that I knew had connections to the people I wanted to get in rooms with. And so a lot of that community building led to partnerships with YouTube, the Grammys, Amazon Music. And after a while, it was like, okay, people would come up to me and be like, okay, Naomi, like, well, who are you as an artist? And I didn't really know. And so kind of tying it back to what I was talking about, I didn't really fully embrace that until this past year. And now that has looked like, if you want to be an art director, you need to learn how to do all of the things. And I think it helps that I have the background of running my own company, but now it's a little bit different as far as like, how are you going to think about creative vision? How do you then manage other people to make those visions come to life? How do you think about resources? How do you think about doing things by coastal? Just a lot of details, a lot of organization, but a lot of that background that I had in entrepreneurship has easily kind of crossed over into what artistry looks like for myself. I don't know if I completely answered the question, but again, if folks have other questions about that specifically, feel free to ask me.
Do you want to start? I feel like when Iyad, Jemana, and I met, we were all working on like very small projects that were very like passion driven. So we were very interested in this one tree that's native to landscapes where we're from, and we came together realizing that our research had a lot of similarities. And I was looking at the Lebanese cedar from a perspective of diaspora. You and Jemana were looking at the tree from the perspective of it being a climate refugee in its own landscape. And at that point, I was an artist, like a very nascent teacher educator. I really had very little idea of like what a studio practice could look like. I was building that, but I was at a moment when certain ideas of thinking about systems were crystallizing for me, and it was kind of like a perfect serendipity to find two incredible collaborators, and Iyad, who I work most closely with in this partnership. And I think what I'm trying to get at is finding like-minded people is a really good way to facilitate growth in your practice. Iyad, I don't know if you want to like talk a bit more about our trajectory.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just take a step back about the scale, and so I'm an architect by training, so I'm trained to think of different scales. unfortunately. But or good. But when we started when we started working and we started looking at this tree, we were actually also looking at how that tree was being implicated by different scales, from the genetic, like the way the seeds germinate, to actually the architecture of the whole tree itself and the roots. And we kind of took that and embraced it into scaling our project, like looking at it at the cross-section of all of these intersectional stuff. And we're hoping in the future, again, to look at it as an ecosystem. EcoRove is short for ecological wanderer or ecological rover. And we wanted to kind of expand to incorporate multiple collaborators, people that we can work with that are working on different scales, and how kind of all of these issues, like the cedar tree is not a unique tree, or the issues that the cedar trees are facing are not unique. There's similar trees here in the Americas. There's similar issues in Africa with similar trees. So these stuff are all scalable, and they belong to different territories and geographies. And the way we see EcoRove is kind of expanding into these different territories and geographies and communities and working with them.
And then again, using that to like think about, okay, how do we do what we need to do? Like we need to collaborate with this person. Like we need to pay with we need to pay this person to do this. And then thinking about how that can holistically fit with the themes that our work are focusing on.
So we've come to 8 o'clock. Thank you for all of your attention and your questions. I think now is a great time for us to enter into this mixer. You can come up and ask these people questions. You can come up and ask the staff questions. Thank you so much to Gatch, Caitlin, Alyssa, working the AV, Chiron and Salome, holding it down in the chat. And thank you for all of you to come here. Be curious, be open. Please eat the rest of this food we have here. Don't let us give it away. But thanks so much, yo.